Imagine for a moment you are a part of a lineage so intertwined with the supernatural that the mere mention of your name invokes stories of hauntings that have plagued generations. What if the echoes of a witch's curse could still be heard in the rustling leaves, the creaking floorboards, or the silent gaze of a portrait that seems to know all your fears? Knowing every misfortune might be caused by ghostly revenge. How far would you go to protect your kin from a legacy of darkness? To break free from the chains of a haunted history? Would you challenge the unknown? Confront the abyss of the paranormal to reclaim your family's peace? Or would you succumb to the whispers that claim yet another victim to the Bell Witch's enduring wrath? These are the questions that haunt the descendants of the Bell family, entangled in a web of eerie occurrences and unexplained events.
Welcome to Down the Crooked Path. I'm your host, Amanda Joy. Join me as we dive into eerie and spine-chilling stories that blur the lines between reality and the unknown. From cryptids and mysterious disappearances to true crime, UFO sightings, and paranormal activity, venture into the unknown and uncover the secrets that lie down the crooked path.
Today, we journey into the heart of one of America's most enduring and chilling legends, the Bell Witch. The saga of a family's battle against an unseen foe and is riddled with classic events of a telltale haunting. From mysterious knockings to eerie voices in the night, apparitions of black dogs, and even unexplained death. The Bell Witch's presence was as undeniable as it was terrifying, witnessed by countless individuals, and her story has since become a piece of folklore that continues to captivate and curse all of those who encounter it to this day. John Bell, a farmer from North Carolina, moved with his wife Lucy Bell, their 5 children, and 9 enslaved people to fertile Red River bottomland in Robinson County, Tennessee, in the early 1800s. One son had already married and moved away and was not traveling with them. This move marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Bell family as they settled into Red River community, which would later become known as Adams, Tennessee. Here, Bell invested in land and a large house, establishing a homestead where he and his family could thrive. Overall, he obtained 328 acres. The Bells were a typical frontier family, working hard to cultivate their land and create a comfortable life in their new surroundings. Over the years, the Bell would have 3 more children, and John eventually became an elder for the Red River Baptist Church. For over 10 years, the Bells lived peacefully, facing the usual rural challenges and rewards. Then, one day, in 1817, John Bell is walking along the cornfields on his property when he notices an odd creature. At first glance, it looks like a large dog, but this has a head of a rabbit. Alarmed, John raises his gun and shoots several times at the animal, which runs off seemingly unharmed. At the time, Bell thought nothing of this incident. However, this would be the first of many unusual manifestations. Later that evening, while having dinner, the family heard strange knocking sounds on the walls outside the house. The sons ran out to look, but no one was around. For nights, the knockings would persist. The children would complain about sounds like rats were gnawing away at the bedposts and chains being dragged across the floors. In the morning, though, there would be no evidence of this ever happening. Some evenings, dog fights could be heard in the fields. Finally, whatever was tormenting the children started to throw their pillows off the beds and rip their blankets from their bodies as they slept. Not long after this, John's son Andrew had an encounter with another strange animal. This one looked like a large bird, perhaps a turkey, perched on the fence. He runs to the house to grab his gun, and as he returns to the field, bird takes off and flies overhead, and to Andrew's surprise, vanishes. Following this event, one of the Bell's daughter, Elizabeth, who also goes by the name Betsy, she sees a woman in a green dress hanging from an oak tree before the woman vanishes. Betsy is 11 years old when this happens. The family members were not exclusive to the manifestations. The enslaved workers were also subject to encounters. One man was named Dean. Dean had fallen in love with a slave worker who worked at a nearby farm belonging to the Dunn family when he married her. After work, Dean would often walk through the woods to the Dunn farm and visit his wife, and then back again before dawn. He encountered a large black dog several times. Sometimes this dog had 2 heads. It would appear like clockwork in the same area around the same time. Confused by this, it took Dean weeks before he reported the sighting, but he had become so afraid that he started to carry a witch ball to protect him and his wife. Black dogs have historically been associated with folklore and superstition in many different cultures. In ancient mythologies, black dogs were seen as omens of death or misfortune. For instance, in Celtic mythology, the black dog was associated with the otherworld and believed to guide souls to their final resting place. In British folklore, black dogs like the Black Shuck or Padfoot were considered harbingers of doom, roaming the countryside at night and foretelling tragic events. In some Eastern traditions, black dogs were seen as protectors and symbols of good fortune. These cultural influences may have shaped the perceptions and experiences of the Bell family and their community, reinforcing that the idea that this black dog sighted by Dean was a manifestation of a witch's power. As the situation progressed, the spirit had begun to target Betsy. At night, a witch would pull her hair, pinching and scratching her. She was even stuck with pins. One evening, the assault was so bad, Betsy ran into her parents' room in the middle of the night. She was covered in large red welts, almost as if she had been beaten. Noises would follow her. She was even experiencing visions. In an attempt for reprieve, Betsy went to stay at her friend's home, hoping for some peace. But the occurrences followed her there as well. It appeared as if the farm wasn't haunted, but the family. These happenings would carry on for well over a year. At this point, John Bell's health had taken a turn. He was having trouble swallowing food, describing it as if something was pushing the food from his mouth, and that his tongue felt swollen. Throughout these developments, John Bell attempted to manage the situation discreetly within the family. The widespread fear of witchcraft persecution in the early 19th century caused John to be reluctant to seek external assistance. In a time when such accusations could lead to social ostracization, imprisonment, or even death, admitting to encounters with the paranormal was extremely risky. The memories of the infamous witch trials and their severe consequences lingered in the collective consciousness, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and fear. For John Bell, the risk of being labeled as a victim of witchcraft, or worse, as a witch himself, was too great a danger to face without absolute necessity. This fear of persecution kept him silent for prolonged periods, hoping to be able to quell these events and that they would cease on their own. But these events didn't stop. Betsy's friend eventually figured out what was happening, and the Bells were finally ready to ask for help. John Bell turned to a local minister named James Johnson. He extends an invitation for dinner, wanting the minister to observe these events firsthand and potentially gain insight into the situation. Additionally, he hopes to discover potential solutions to address the issue. Johnson agrees and brings his wife along to spend the night. After dinner, the minister reads from the Bible. They say prayers, they sing hymns. It is then throughout the night that the Johnsons are plagued with the same occurrences the children had been experiencing. Bedding is torn from their beds. They are taunted by noises and pinching. In the morning, the minister explains to John Bell that this is an evil spirit, like those described in the Bible. It is here where the spirit does something it hadn't done before. It spoke. Word for word, a phantom voice begins to repeat the prayers and hymns spoken the night before, almost mocking the group. It proceeds to state that its name is Kate, and when asked who she is or what she wants, the voice replies, "I am a spirit. I was once very happy, but I have been disturbed." Now word had begun to spread about the haunting-like activities. Word had traveled so far it reached Bell's oldest daughter in North Carolina, who wrote the family out of concern. The Bell Witch's remarkable abilities left the community both fascinated and terrified. One of the most astonishing incidents involved two ministers delivering sermons simultaneously, 13 miles apart. Despite the distance, the witch demonstrated her eerie prowess by reciting both sermons, word for word. The idea that an unseen entity could possess such knowledge and power only deepened the local belief in the supernatural. It seemed the witch had an uncanny knowledge of events outside of the Bell household. Soon the witch began to share gossip and details of activities happening in other homes within the community. She would accurately recount conversations or secrets that were thought to have been private. On one occasion, she described a dinner party so vividly in detail, including the guests' attire and topics they discussed. John Johnson, the son of Minister James Johnson, came up with a sort of test for the witch. He wanted to test her knowledge and ask her something that no one outside of the family could possibly know. He asked Kate about his Dutch step-grandmother in North Carolina. Specifically, he wanted to know what she would say to the slaves if she thought they had done something wrong. An invisible person answered him in his grandmother's accent. "Hut tut, what has happened now?" John Johnson was astonished. Future President Andrew Jackson took a keen interest in the Bell Witch phenomenon and decided to visit the Bell farm. When Jackson and his men arrived at the farm, their wagon wheels mysteriously came to a halt, and no matter of the effort, they could not get them to move again. Bell Witch's eerie laughter echoed through the night, leaving the men on edge. Among Jackson's entourage was a man who claimed to be a witch hunter, boasting of a loaded gun filled with silver bullets. He claimed this terrified the witch and kept her at bay. However, the witch started to mock his confidence, saying she would test his bravery. That night, the witch interacted with the witch hunter, engaging in actions such as pinching and slapping him, causing his body to convulse until he left. The next morning, Jackson and his men quickly departed, deeply unsettled by their encounter with this malevolent spirit. For all of the fuss and torment Kate caused the family, she seemed to be fond of the Bell's matriarch, Lucy. Lucy would be shown kindness, with Kate referring to her as the most perfect woman to walk on earth. Lucy had fallen ill with a lung infection. She was bedridden and weak, when next to her bed appeared hazelnuts and grapes. After eating these, Lucy recovered. Kate proceeds to claim that she provided her the remedy. Kate has also shown some kindness to John Jr. She does, however, have a dislike for John Bell. The voice would call him names, shouting out "Old Jack." It would say horrible things to him and threats. The voice promised to kill him. It has now been 3 years since the first incident with the witch, and John has become very unwell, bedridden. The issues with his face and tongue have become more frequent and worsened. During the peak of his illness, he tried to walk the grounds with his son Richard Bell, but the Bell Witch kept removing his shoes. No matter how tightly John tried to tie them, they would fly off his feet. When he turned to walk back towards the house, the witch slapped him across the face with an invisible hand so hard he fell to the ground. John's condition worsened, and he eventually falls into a coma. John Bell died on December 20th, 1820. A vial of dark liquid is found by John Bell Sr. in a cupboard of their home. The Bell Witch then claims that this is poison, and asserts that she used it on John Bell Sr. to hasten his death. Disturbed by the discovery, the family called for Dr. George B. Hobson. To test its deadliness, they gave a drop of the liquid to their cat, which died almost immediately, confirming the witch's malevolent claim. To get rid of the vial, it was tossed to the hearth fire, where it ignites in blue flames. Even in death, the witch didn't leave John Bell alone. She would crash his funeral. Mourners were startled by her loud, mocking laughter that echoed through the air, and the solemn occasion was disrupted by objects being mysteriously thrown around. She loudly sang drinking songs. However, after this, the abuse of the rest of the family endured was lessened by her. But she had now turned her sights to Betsy. Betsy Bell was engaged to Josh Gardner, a neighbor and close friend. The Bell Witch vehemently opposed their union and increased her torment, specifically targeting Betsy with intense physical and emotional abuse. The witch would frequently whisper to Betsy, urging her to leave Joshua. The relentless harassment included disturbing noises, pinching, slapping, and even choking Betsy. The entity never left the couple alone. Unable to bear the witch's malevolence any longer, Betsy broke off the engagement to protect Joshua and herself from any further harm. For 107 years, the Bell Witch remained quiet. In 1937, the Bell Witch supposedly returned. Nashville journalist T.H. Alexander reported this in his syndicate column. During her final visit to the Bell family in 1828, she had promised to return in 107 years. News of this prompted heightened curiosity and fears in Adams, Tennessee, leading to a series of eerie incidents recorded in the area. These included strange noises from what is now known as the Bell Witch Cave, mysteriously emptied corn sacks, blackouts, and broken beds. The events of the Bell Witch have left a mark in American folklore, but one can't help but ponder the deeper meaning behind these unsettling events. Was the Bell Witch really a malevolent spirit? Or could someone have been behind it all, orchestrating an elaborate hoax? If it was a hoax, how could such a scheme be sustained for so long, causing genuine fear and distress? And if the Bell Witch was indeed real, why did she specifically target the Bell family? Many fingers pointed to the neighbor of the Bells, a woman named Kate Bates. Known for her contentious personality and eccentric behavior, she was often regarded with suspicion by the local community. Additionally, she had had a reputation for dabbling in the occult. Kate believed that John had cheated her out of land purchase, and this started a long-standing feud between the two. Kate's unfavorable reputation, combined with her proximity to the Bells, made her an easy target. After all, how could the witch know such intimate details about the family and their activities? There are, however, several reasons to doubt that Kate was the witch. Firstly, there are no concrete evidence that links her to any of the supernatural events. These accusations were based largely on hearsay and the community's need for a scapegoat. and the intimate knowledge of the family could have come from anyone close to the Bells, including family members within the household. One intriguing theory suggests that the Bell family's slaves may have orchestrated the haunting as a form of resistance or manipulation. The slaves would have had intimate knowledge of the household's routines and habits, which would have allowed them to create disturbances without being easily detected. The slaves could have used ventriloquism, deception techniques, and collaboration to sustain the haunting, creating eerie sounds, mimicking voices, and manipulating objects from hidden locations. Their potential motives could have included a desire to create fear and chaos within the household as an act of defiance against their enslavers, or to gain leverage or freedom by exploiting the family's superstitions. However, this theory also has its limitations. Orchestrating such an elaborate hoax would have been extremely risky for the slaves, as they could have faced severe punishments if discovered. Additionally, the supernatural events were witnessed by multiple family members and community members, making it unlikely that the slaves alone could have been responsible for all of the occurrences. And finally, the slaves' own accounts of the haunting suggested that they were also victims of the supernatural events rather than the perpetrators. While the theory is intriguing, it remains speculative. There are those who suggest that the Bell Witch haunting was caused by the Bell family's farm being situated on ancient American burial ground. This idea emerged from the belief that disturbing sacred sites could provoke vengeful spirits, adding a layer of mystery to the haunting. The area around Adams, Tennessee, where the Bell family lived, was historically inhabited by various Native American tribes, including Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Cree. These tribes used the land for hunting and had burial sites scattered throughout the region. Some believe that the restless spirits of the displaced Native Americans targeted the Bell family for desecrating their burial grounds, and this fueled the superstitious events. Although the Bells considered this possibility, there was no concrete evidence to confirm the presence of an American burial ground on their property, and they did search the grounds. Professor Richard Powell was Betsy's school teacher. He was known for his intelligence and diverse interests, which included the occult, ventriloquism, and various science. 11 years her senior, he had developed strong feelings for Betsy. Powell frequently visited Bell home and paid Betsy many compliments, even though she was already courting Josh Garner. People suspected Powell of being behind Bell Witch hauntings due to his knowledge of the occult and ventriloquism, which could have enabled him to create the illusion of a haunting. He likely intended to disrupt Betsy's engagement with Josh Garner, which the witch strongly opposed. After Betsy broke off her engagement with Joshua in 1821, Powell frequently visited her, reciting poetry and offering comfort during her period of grief. Their courtship gradually evolved, and they eventually married on March 1st, 1824. Despite these suspicions, there are several reasons to doubt Powell's involvement. Like Kate Batts, there is no concrete evidence linking him to the events that plagued the family. Unlike the slaves, the occurrences have many witnesses, making it unlikely he had done this alone, or could have orchestrated all of the disturbances. Finally, his involvement with the community and politics could suggest that he had little to gain from the events. The possibility of the Bell Witch haunting being an elaborate hoax has been considered by many. Suspects include the Bell family, such as John Bell Jr. or even Betsy Bell herself, who may have had personal motives. For instance, John Bell Jr. might have sought to create fear and uncertainty within the household to assert control or address unresolved family conflicts. Betsy Bell herself could have been motivated by these desires to gain attention or manipulate her father, John Bell Sr., due to underlying family tensions. But this theory has holes as well, like all the other theories. The events were witnessed with multiple family and community members over a prolonged period. It would have been very difficult for a group or small people to continue such elaborate hoax for such a period of time. The risk of exposure would have been too great as well, similar to John Bell's fear of the stigma attached to supernatural and witchcraft. Being caught could have real consequences. There are some who suggest the idea of poison. There could have been many natural toxins contaminating the family. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that can cause symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, confusion, and hallucinations. In the early 19th century, homes were often heated with wood or coal, which could produce carbon monoxide if not properly ventilated. Prolonged exposure to low levels of carbon monoxide could have affected the entire family. Or ergot. Ergot is a fungus that grows on rye and other grains. When ingested, it can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and other symptoms similar to those described in the Bell Witch case. If the Bell family consumed contaminated grain over prolonged periods, it could explain the strange phenomenon they were experiencing. These poisonings could have profound psychological impacts on the other witnesses and victims, heightening their fear and belief in a witch's power. The discovery of a dark vial containing a mysterious liquid after John Bell's death led to suspicions that he had in fact been poisoned. If this was the case, arsenic or other toxic substances could have been used to carry out said poisoning. Many who believe this theory considered Kathy Batts as responsible for this. Dr. Megan Mann, an assistant professor of chemistry in Austin Peay State University, has conducted extensive research on the Bell Witch legend. She suggests that John Bell's symptoms, such as difficulty swallowing, facial twitching, and muscle spasms, align with those of arsenic poisoning. Arsenic was widely available in the 1800s, commonly used as a rodent-side on farms. Dr. Mann believes that John Bell may have been a victim of long-term arsenic poisoning, receiving small doses over several years and a fatal dose on the night before his death. The presence of a blue flame when the liquid was thrown into a fire further supports the arsenic theory, as arsenic can produce blue flame with birth. Despite these compelling arguments, the true nature of the dark liquid remains a mystery. The dark liquid was never conclusively identified, and some skeptics argue that it could have been something as innocuous as coffee. Without definitive proof, poisoning theory remains a tantalizing yet unconfirmed element of the legend. Historically, mass hysteria has been connected to similar events. Psychological factors and intense stress could lead the family and community to believe in and experience supernatural occurrences. During the early 19th century, life on the frontier was fraught with hardships, uncertainty, and fear, creating fertile ground for a collective anxiety. The initial strange events and eerie disturbances could have triggered a chain reaction, where heightened emotions and suggestibility spread in belief of the witch's presence among family members and neighbors. John Bell's death, allegedly from poisoning, could have intensified the hysteria, as he was the family's patriarch and the central figure in the hauntings narrative. His death might have left the remaining family members even more susceptible to fear and anxiety, perpetuating the belief in the supernatural. The haunting may have stopped when key individuals such as Betsy Bell experiencing significant changes in their lives, or when the collective focus shifted away from the supernatural, allowing the community to gradually return to a more rational state of mind. The Bell Witch haunting remains one of the most intriguing and mysterious tales in American folklore. with countless witnesses and historical records confirming the existence of key players like the Bell family. It's difficult to dismiss the events as mere fiction. Humans play significant roles in these situations, driven by emotions, personal motives, and sometimes selfishness. Whether it was the Bell family's contentious relationship with Kathy Batts, the suspicions surrounding the slaves, or the possibility of an involvement of Professor Richard Powell, the haunting highlights how human nature can influence and perpetuate such legends. Superstitions and cultural belief have also played a crucial part in shaping the narrative of Bell Witch. The fear of disturbing ancient burial grounds, the belief of a vengeful spirit, and the psychological impact of mass hysteria all contributed to the enduring mystery. Despite various theories and explanations, the true nature of the Bell Witch haunting remains elusive, leaving room for endless speculation and wonder. The story continues to captivate and mystify, reminding us of the powerful interplay between human nature, superstition, and the unknown. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the perplexing Bell Witch legend. May the mysteries guide you as we continue to explore the unknown together. Until next time, this is Amanda Joy, signing off from Down the Crooked Path.